Okay, welcome everybody to She's of Love. And today we have Adrian on the show once again. This is your second time on now. And I remember the first episode was so um I don't know, I just learned so much. I received so much. It seems like forever ago because I was back in Australia. Now I'm in the UK.
Appreciate
Topic
you guys having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you again. So thank you.
Oh no, we're so honored. Um, yeah, so today's topic of conversation is around releasing blocks, dealing with blocks. And when I say blocks, to me that means kind of like um habits that you just can't seem to shake, or mindsets that keep coming, and thoughts and doubt and things. And the reason why this topic came up for me today is that we're recording this on the full moon in August, and the full moon is like hectic this month. It's like a super blue moon, and it's like in Mercury retrograde. It's like a mega energy going around at the moment, and yeah, it's like a really big time to release everything and kind of start fresh.
Mm.
So I guess I'll hand over the mic to you, Adrian, and you can kind of take this wherever you want to take it, and we'll just follow along.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that whole sort of like letting go of the old and embracing the new, like saying yes to opportunities, like we are talking off air about just saying yes to things. You never know what's around the corner and what it could lead to. So I think you're right. Like in terms of blockages, that's where a lot of people find they almost have like an awareness. I'm not sure if you would agree. You have an awareness that something's in the way, but you're just not quite sure how to get rid of it or how to change direction or how to just stop doing the thing that's like getting in the way all the time. Is that kind of where you were
Yeah,
leading to with what you're saying about blockages? Would you agree?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I think that that's a really good that's a really good place to be in my mind, because you're at this curiosity stage where you know that things aren't quite the way that you want to be, and there's a few things that are getting in your way, and to be aware of that is actually like, to me it's almost like 50, 60, 70% of the battle. There's a lot of people that are unconscious about the things that they do, and so you can see it a mile away from an outside perspective or from an outside looking in. I know why she does this and I can see these patterns and things like that, but to they themselves are ignorant, so they just think that life's the way it is, that it's hard or it's easy or it's whatever it may be. I just find this type of woman or this type of man, or always seem to land myself in these types of situations all the time. I'm always without money or whatever it may be, whatever the limiting belief is, whatever the blockage is. If they're unaware of it, they just think like the that's the hand that God dealt them, right? And there's
Yeah,
nothing they can do about it, and they're not in control.
yeah,
So what I
Mm.
like about being at least aware that there's something better on the horizon for me, and I'm not sure how to get there, but all I know is that it's there. And that if I can just change my rudder like 10 degrees west or 10 degrees north or whatever it may be, then maybe I could change the trajectory of my life. So there's probably a few things to talk to, because what people understand in terms of, say, goal setting, this is a familiar one for me, where people will go, look, I'm setting goals. And so when they look at it, they look at, I'm setting smart goals, they're they're time reference, they're measurable, and I've got all of these sort of acronyms that I'm putting in place, and they're very grand, and I'm working towards, and I've got my fucking vision board going, and I've got everything, all these things in alignment, and they're like, I don't know why things aren't working out. And so it's funny because like when we're taught to goal set, that's what we're taught, is like begin with the end in mind. This is where I want to go. Now I've got to work out the steps, before that. And I've just got to maybe visualize, and I've got to put up my pictures and things like that. And maybe then I can sit back and kind of like imagine things to happen for me, and it will just work out. But we're never taught that there are certain belief systems and value systems that we learn from the ages like 0 through to 7, and we learn from, you know, the people that have looked after us the most, you know, mostly mum and dad. And we've kind of anchored all of these memories and situations and circumstances and events into an unconscious mind. So it's like a big filing system that says, this is what love is, this is what fear is, this is what rage is, this is what rejection is, you know, this is what it means to be in a loving relationship, or this is what it means to go without money, or this is what my value systems around all of these things are. And they're stored within the body. The thing is that when they're stored within the body, they're stored or attached with a memory, and that memory has an emotion, and that emotion carries with it a lot of data. So without knowing all of these things, it kind of makes the goal setting redundant in a sense, because you can set all the goals that you like, but because you've got all these self-sabotaging behaviors, because you get triggered, and your past traumas and experiences and the way that you model the world comes up again, you sort of fuck things up anyway, because you've got this unconscious program that's running the show, and then you don't realize like what the hell is going on. That's where 99% of the frustration, you know that you're doing something wrong, you just can't control how you do it or why you keep doing it over and over again.
Oh my God.
Is it making sense to you?
So
Yes.
yeah.
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 It's so accurate.
You're speaking
what
the
you're saying.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird because no one ever says to you, instead of saying like, what are your goals are, what do you want to be when you grow up or anything like that, they don't say like, what's most important to you? Like, tell me what's most important to you in the area of health, or the area of wealth, or the area of finances, or the area of career, or in travel, or relationships, or love, or intimacy. Like they just never really say any of that kind of stuff. So we're always like trying to climb the ladder of success, but we get frustrated because even if we do appear to have some level of outward success, internally there's sort of like a success but unfulfilled kind of sentiment to where we're going. And some people might be just like feeling like they're just unsuccessful at everything they do, no which way they turn, they can't really turn a trick, and they're just frustrated with that situation. But I run into a lot of people that say, you know what, like I'm really successful, or I'm really good, or I'm really like pleased with how things, I'm not just contented with how things are in life. But at the same time, I feel like I'm unfulfilled in maybe my purpose or my meaning or my contribution. There's something missing that's not sort of like setting my soul on fire. And I don't know what that thing is. So to my knowledge, the imbalance is really not understanding what your values are. So a value is what's important to you. And then the other thing is not understanding what kind of, I guess, situations, circumstances, and events have caused you to have a belief system or a value system that is incongruent with where you want to be right now. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So
I've got a question for you on this. Do you think that this comes from childhood, where we are learning from the people around us that success means ABC, because that's what we're told through society or through school or through, ancestry, or, whatever, our family? Because there was definitely a strong line through my family of what success was. It was handed down through my grandfather and his father to my father and then to me. And so those sorts of belief systems, put it that way, are given to you through your family line. And then around that belief system and that value system, there's on top of it, you get how society views success, how society views, financial, like success is a financial thing, that sort of stuff.
I think it's all of those things.
Yeah. So I think for some people to stop and say, well, I'm not feeling fulfilled, that's the indicator then to them that maybe they're following something that didn't come from within them. It came from outside of them. And they never stop to think how do I feel about what my father's telling me? How do I feel about what society is telling me? I mean, because I've met so many people who are either one or the other. They've rejected, like, I never wanted to be what my father told me I should be, or I never wanted to be what society told me I should be. And so they followed their own path. And then I've met so many people who are the opposite of that, who've said, oh, I did everything I was supposed to do. I did everything my family told me I should do. And I'm one of those people. I was the person that always wanted to make my parents proud. And so I followed a path that they set out for me. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there's these two separate people that either go the way they want to do and they buck the system, or they follow the family line or the societal, you know, proverbial square.
Sure. Yeah. So to me, I think like everyone's going to have their own interpretation of what that means to them.
Yeah.
So, but it does stem from childhood, and it does stem from your outside influences, and it does stem from what society deems to be success, whatever that means, right? So
Yeah, right.
I think for most people, it would, some of it, like as in, I just did what my parents said to do. And then others will be more leaning towards, this is the books that I've read, this is what I think society wants me to be.
Yeah,
And
right.
therefore I'm going to lean against that more than anything. And there's always like things that are in between. So there's this life circumstances that can influence you. Like, how many times would you recount in your life that you've had a significant moment which has made you count your cards and reshape the way you think of the world, and the paradigm of the
Yeah.
world changes? COVID was one of those moments, right? For a lot
Yeah.
of people. So a near death experience, or someone, a loved one that dies that's close to you, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, there's these things, the loss of a business, the loss of a marriage, you know, the loss of a child, like it typically is associated with losses. So some sort of significant moment in time can be the catalyst to you changing the trajectory of your life. That's why when people like all of a sudden get fit, it's on the back of having a stroke or a heart attack, or, you know, a scare in the family with cancer or something like that. And all of a sudden they quit smoking or drinking and they join a gym and they start eating healthy food, right? Why didn't they do that before?
Yeah.
They knew exactly what to do to get healthy, but they didn't do it. The catalyst was,
Yeah.
is now they got motivation because they've had some particular event that's given them the juice and the jolt that kind of go, you know what, I should do things a little bit different now. And I think I'm going to start maybe valuing my health a little bit more. And so again, we go back to values, because we've said to ourselves that that was not important. And in one way, shape or form, my health is not important to me. So there's a lot of that. But what I also find is that people are incongruent with their value systems. So what I mean by that is that they might say, family is my number one value. Okay. I do everything for my family. So then I might say, well, that's fine. So tell me, like, what do you do for your family? Well, I work 2 jobs, or I run a business, and I work 8 days a week. You know, I'm getting up at 6 and I'm coming home at 8 o'clock at night, and you know, all of these things, right? And I go, okay, so your number one value is family, but you're never with them. So tell me, like, how can that be a number one value if you're never spending any quality time with your kids? Like, do you take them to soccer? Do you take them to basketball? Do you, you know, change their nappies? Do you get involved in any of their activities and things like that? Like, when's the last time you read a story to them before they went to bed? Like what are some of the significant milestones that you've missed? Tell me about all of those things, and then I'll tell you where your values lie. Because at the moment, it sounds like you think family is your number one value, but you're actually working against the very thing that you're saying is the number one value. Does it make sense so far?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
you can say I value money, but if you're got 3 credit cards and you're buying, you know, 6 coffees a day and you're living 20% above your means, well, you know, I think that there's some inconsistencies and incongruencies with where your value systems lie. You don't value money at all. You're a slave to money, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you value nice things and you value having the best of
Yes.
everything, or keeping up with the Joneses, or that sort of thing. So I think when it comes to value systems, people really need to understand what's most important to them. And so if we drill that down a little bit further, what I do with my coaching clients or with my courses or events that I run is I get to people to break down, like, if your area of health is a value of yours, well, then what about health is valuable to you? So where do your values lie in that? And people might say, well, I don't know what you mean. Okay, well, I value health, but health is like the umbrella of everything that sits underneath it. But I value vitality. I value having high energy. I value having stamina. I value having strength, right? I value trying to look and feel as youthful as I possibly can. That may be a debatable thing, right? But it's kind of like, these are the subcategories or the sub values under health that are most important to me. So how do I live congruently with those values? Well, I eat mostly meat and fruit and coconut water and filter water and all those sorts of things, because I eliminate most of the toxins. I like to splurge here and there, but most of the things that are not conducive to all of that, that's what I eliminate from my body. And so I am congruent with that value. Is this making sense so far?
Yeah.
Right. So there's almost like an umbrella of things. So when I mention to people, like, what are your values? And they'll just do generic things like, well, I value, love, or I value friendship, or I value honesty or an integrity. And they kind of just go with these sort of fluffy things that everyone's kind of been taught that that's what should be important to you. So therefore, I'm just going to list it just like everyone else. So I just started to drill it down a little bit further. And I guess, without going into a full workshop of things of like how we do that, I think to Juliet's question before about like getting out of this stuck feeling or getting through blockages, that's kind of like the juicy part of it. That's kind of the nuts and bolts, because most people, as you were saying before, is that like they've just looked at what society thought that success means, or what mum and dad thought was success means. That's why mum and dads are typically like, go to school, get good grades, get a great education, you get a high paying job, but they're not in touch with the reality of things, which is that there is like little evidence anymore of a safe, secure job, right? And again, like the last 4 years, it was of any indication that your job was never safe nor secure, because they were happy to put you out of work, based on what you did and didn't do with your body, right?
One thing that like really just came so strongly while you were talking was how I think something that I've done in the past, and I see in a lot of others too, who are on their healing journey, who are trying to break the cycles and get out of the mindset of society and stuff and build these healthy habits. It's all like very aggressive, like you've got to get out and you've got to like do it every day and you've got to commit and you've got to, it's a hard thing, and you have to put all your energy into it, that is true. The words themselves, that is true. You do have to commit. It is an everyday action. It is hard work. But I think a lot of people go into it with the mindset that they've learnt from being in society, like from the hardworking slave kind of mindset of, I have to drag myself through this, and it's a horrible experience until I get to my goal. Like
Yes,
there's
so
this like
true.
belief that you can't have fun or you can't enjoy it until you achieve what you want to achieve.
That was
And
me.
yeah, well, it's me too. Like I'm talking to myself when I say this stuff, because I don't know. I think when we move through and actually realize the meaning behind breaking through our blocks, and like exactly what you're saying, Adrian, about being in alignment with your values, it takes you have to first work on a different mindset. You can't go into it with the same mindset that you would a job. Like it doesn't, because
Mm.
it's not a job, it's your life. And like you can't expect, oh, if I like work really hard and run for 5 hours, 5 miles every day, and that's what's going to get me going. And it might do, but I think we can all get there in a more, we can actually enjoy the ride when we find a mindset that's more kind, more patient. And it's like, I read this quote the other day that was like, why are you trying to rush something like that, something that you want to stick with for the rest of your life? Why are you trying to rush a life goal? You can't rush a life goal. If your life goal is to be healthy, and whatever means that is, like you can't expect yourself to start from a state where you're not healthy, or where you're struggling with your health, to just like one day everything change, your mindset change, and that like running 5 miles a day when you've never run 1 mile is going to be a possible thing overnight. Like you can't, I don't know, you can't do that. But I place expectations like that on myself all the time, to just be able to wake up and change completely. Like, well, I want this thing, I want this mindset, I want to live this way of life. So tomorrow, I'm just going to do that.
I'm going to
And
start. Yeah.
yeah, and I think,
Well, I think that are you trying to say that the I guess the narrative or the main kind of messaging out there is like to grind and to work, 24/7,
yeah,
and that kind of hustle mentality, whereas I think probably there's a part of it that this could be, I was going to say it could be more of a masculine or feminine, approach to things.
yeah,
But I see that in that kind of like boss babe, lady balls sort of type of mentality as well. Is like, like I'm my own boss. I do my own thing and I work hard, and they're pretty much celebrating most of the toxic masculinity traits, I guess, that they rubbish most of the time. So anyway, we probably won't go down that angle if you don't want to, but yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying. Like you're saying that there is another way in terms of grinding, but I think more to the point, what I'm hearing too is that if you are out of alignment, incongruent, not balanced with how you approach things, or whether it's something that is in alignment with what you truly value the most, then it would be a grind, like it would be a hustle.
Yes, so true.
It
yeah,
would be something that you'd be pushing through, and it'd be
Mm.
really, really
fully,
hard, and it would be something that would be um, conducive to sort of like burnout and just like exhaustion and all of those things. But I think if you are working towards something that was what someone else said you should do, or what you think the image that society wants you to be is, then that's where the grind is. The grind is like
Yeah.
in the imbalance of all of that. So
yeah,
I know with myself, when I'm like, when they call it like truly in flow, or when you're in the moment where you don't sleep and you don't eat and you've got heaps of energy. I've been in those moments like a lot, and always surprised as to like, where the fuck do I get this energy and stamina and persistence and perseverance to do this thing? And it's just because
mm,
like I'm truly in alignment with the thing that I want to do. And so then the undertone of all of that is what I'm hearing from you as well, is like enjoying the process, because when you get to
yeah,
the end of your days, I would imagine that the stories along the way so far in like my young life, I like to tell the stories that are part of the journey. Whereas when we're in the throes of it all,
mm.
we're always looking at the horizon always moves.
Yes, so true.
I think
That's like that's like a quotable quote right there.
Yeah, well, I
That's
I
think it
so
is. I
yeah,
probably
true.
stole it from somewhere, but it's like, we're always chasing a movable object, and the
Yeah.
goalposts are always moving. So
mm,
then you're really only left with the choice of enjoying the present moment and what you're doing, because in every one of those little steps and those little actions is living the outcome, right? So
Yeah.
everyone wants to get the outcome, the $1
Yeah.
million, the big business, the thrill of the deal, all those sorts of things. But we all know that when you do get those types of moments in life, they're short lived, and it's like a drug. You just want the next high. So you're always chasing again. So therefore, it still breaks it down to, well, what are you left with? We're left with the moment. We're left with enjoying the process, and we're left with the tenacity and the willpower and the strength and the endurance and the intestinal fortitude to just keep going no matter what. Because then you have an opportunity to say, should I be a victim, and should I say to myself, the world's gone to shit and everything's going to implode, and this is just the way it is, and the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer? Like, am I going to use that, or am I going to have this opportunity to say, everything in life is a lesson, I'm here to learn, I'm always a student, and right now this moment is teaching me something, show me the lesson I haven't learned yet, let's get the fuck on with things, and let's kind of move through the thing that I'm meant to be doing and gear myself into the position that I need to be. It's that whole sort of like, most things are off track most of the time. It's always
I
needs
think
to stay back on track.
Yeah.
yeah, people forget that they like have free will, I think, a lot of the time. And there's this strong message that like, okay, yeah, with money, that you don't have a choice, that you're born into life lucky or unlucky. Um, and your health, you don't decide your health. It's all based on genetics. And the world that we live in is um effed, and the products that we choose, that we can buy, are horrible. And like, they give their choice, their free will away by like having this mindset, I think, a lot. And I was, because I'm with a lot of family at the moment here in the UK, and um I've noticed in the UK there's a lot of at least compared to Australia, there's a lot more health issues. Maybe that's just the reality I'm in. I don't know. But I've just noticed it a lot more. Um, People are a lot more sick. It's a lot more common to, yeah, like, think the cancer rates that, at least the cancer rates that they say, who knows if it's true, but they're crazy high over here in the UK. And I see this mindset in people that um, they don't have a choice or power over their health a lot of the time. And
Mm.
yeah, I noticed that that really seeps in when you're surrounded by other people. Like, I was starting to feel that way in some aspects, and I was like, oh my God, why am I thinking this way? Why is it like, seeping into my mind? Because I don't, that is the opposite of my values and my belief system. And I think surround yourself, when you're surrounded by other people that think this way, it's such a easy thing to get wrapped into, and you don't even realize it until you, like how you were saying at the very start, um, about that external mindset, and like being able to take yourself out, because someone looking in can see, oh my God, that's their pattern. This is what they're doing. This is their harmful cycle. If you can figure out how to do that for yourself and be your own
Yeah.
external voice, external, I guess, perspective, yeah, that's like a really important thing to learn when you want to break blockages and cycles and habits and stuff, so you can actually even just be aware of your blockages, because so many people don't even realize that they're you know blocking themselves.
Mm.
Yeah, that's right. Because you're born into a, an established, because when you're born, the world is already at a stage, it's already
Mm.
established. So you're in an established family, you're in a narrative already when you're born. And you're not born in a vacuum. So as soon as you're born, these messages are coming in, and these ways of living are already around you. And that's what I was going to say before. Have the presence of mind. You need to learn how to have the presence of mind to actually say, check in with yourself and say, right, where am I creating this in my life? Where is it that I'm subconsciously, moving in that direction that I don't want to be moving in? And
Sky.
that's why I think, having a coach or having somebody, a mentor or someone in your life to actually say, hey, look in the mirror for a minute. It's like a psychological wake up call,
Yeah.
because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You're in it and you can't see the wood for the trees. So it's like you need to have somebody in your life that can say, have you thought about this? Have you asked yourself this question?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've had coaches all my life, and I think that, whether it's in sport, mostly as I was growing up, like you always need someone that has that 30,000 foot view that's going to give you
Yeah.
that outsider's perspective, looking in. The thing that I think more to what Juliet was saying before was that the thing that people have fallen into quite a bit is this sort of like savior complex where they're just waiting for someone else to save them, or they're waiting on someone else
Yes.
to give them that guiding light or that steer in the right direction, or they're waiting for someone to take action on the things that might be troubling a nation or a society, or a particular health scare, like you mentioned, cancer and things like that. So we have to be very, very careful of the social contagion, which I think is an underplayed barometer that a lot of people, or factor that a lot of people aren't talking about enough. And they're not sort of considering that in any one day, you could be exposed somewhere between 5 and 15,000 marketing messages per day, right? So there's information that's coming at us at rates of knots that we can't really comprehend from a conscious mind perspective. Your unconscious mind is like a tape recorder that's always on. It's never not recording. It's never not processing every sensory bit of information that's going on at any one time, internally and externally. So you have to be very, very conscious. And that kind of self-checking that we were talking before, I think that's like the number one skill that anyone can develop, because what people might consider prayer or connecting to source or anything like that, that inner dialogue that happens in my mind is the highest version of yourself. And when you're connected to the highest version of yourself, and it's connected authentically and congruently, it's never wrong. The answers are always there. They're always ready for you at an instant. You never have to really wait for anything. Like time collapses in that moment because you're now connected to this higher version of yourself. If you would to at least entertain, if you're not open to the idea that this is a splice in time, and that if time is in a sense like mirrored in and layered many millions, trillions, billions of times, that we can be living out this moment in any construct, in any moment in time, whether it be in the past or whether it be 1,000 years in the future. So with that being said, and without breaking down, all the kind of like nuances of how time works, like I think if you can at least entertain the concept that there is a higher version of yourself somewhere into the future, and if you want to create that in the present moment, then you need to be projecting forward in order to bring it back. So that inner check-in, that inner dialogue, that kind of connecting to your higher self is something, that a habit that I coach on and I teach on all the time and I embody all the time, whether it be just me having a conversation with myself, or whether it be me calling in a certain circumstance, situation, event, whether it be monetary, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a business, whether it be a health goal, it doesn't matter. I know that there's a version of Adrian out there who's happy, healthy, wealthy, he's like in the best shape of his life, and everything's working out for him. And I want to call that version into the present moment, and I want to collapse all time in between me and that version of Adrian, right?
Mm.
So that inner check-in, that's
Mm.
kind of like, let's check reality with what my thoughts are, because thoughts can be like misleading, and relate,
Yep.
like emotions can tell you untruths. Sometimes like
Yep.
the ego is really cunning. The ego can disguise itself as like, God or Jesus or Allah or your authentic self or whatever, and it tells you what you want to hear. And if you happen to be fairly like optimistic, you can bullshit yourself into thinking that things aren't like as bad as what they really are, right? And if you happen
Yeah.
to be very pessimistic, then you can freely convince yourself that things are a lot worse than what they are. So you're never seeing the truth for what it is. And it's because that blockage is between you and your higher self. And you just have been taught to, like, untrained basically, to not listen to that voice and abdicate that to a higher power. So that could be a teacher, it could be a government, or it could be Jesus Christ or Allah or Buddha or whoever you want to call your, higher source or whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, right. I have you seen the movie Everything uh Everywhere All at Once? Everything
No.
Everywhere All at Once. So what you're talking about, connecting in with your higher self and collapsing time in that moment and calling in your your self that is happy and balanced and all the things that you want in this moment, and calling it into this moment for yourself. That's what that movie is about. It
True.
it and it's really like it really stretches the mind. And when I first watched it, I didn't get it. I was like, what the hell is this movie? But
Mm.
then since watching it and moving through my journey and talking to more and more people, it's like, oh, that's what that was about. It was like it planted the seed in my mind, and I didn't understand it at the time when I was watching it. But in hindsight now I do.
Mm. Sounds
And
great. You'll have to send it to me.
it's amazing. And yeah, so it's exactly what you're talking about. And the reason why I'm recommending it is because it puts everything that you just said into pictures and into like an instruction manual, if you know what I
Mm.
mean,
Yeah, I
because
do.
it's happening. Yeah, it's happening in the movie. And to
Yeah,
to
and most
think
people are
that,
visual, so they would sort of get that all together, and I think that'll make sense for sure.
yeah, and to think that that is possible, that you can reach into another dimension where you are what you seek now. So there's something about yourself that you're seeking. You can
Mm.
reach into your higher self and bring those things into your life now is like infinite possibility.
Oh, what's the guy? I listen to his meditations every single night, and he writes books and stuff. And ah, I don't know how I've lost his name. I literally listen to his name. I see his name every night because I pull up his meditations. Here we go. It is Joe Dispenza. He's all about that. In his meditations, basically, he gets you to focus on the version of yourself that's living, your dream life, or, whatever aspect of life that you want to be in. It's like envisioning that yourself living that and feeling that emotion from, like, for example, my thing is always running through fields in the middle of nowhere, like having a little cottage somewhere and just like um living that life. And so I always call that in. And yeah, it's all about like feeling the emotion of you actually living that life and embodying that and like calling that emotion into your body to convince and show your body that it's real. And it kind
Mm.
of like sets you into then like going for it and actually like going out into your day and living with that feeling. Because when you're
Yeah.
already in the mindset of being in that reality, things just happen, at least in my experience, things just kind of happen and click into place in front of you. I think a lot of the time people focus on, oh, what's the next step? Like what's the step towards my goal? And there is this really weird line where, yes, you have to put your foot forward and you have to make the action, and you can't just like create a vision board and just sit there and be like, okay, well, it's happening now because I've created
Mm.
a vision board. Like, no, you actually have to go and take action. But then there's also this aspect where you don't have to have everything figured out, and sometimes taking your step forward is meditating, or sometimes it is taking something physical and doing a physical action, and other times it's literally just going out into your day with an intention to live out your dream. And like, I've gone out, been like, okay, well, I want to do this thing. I there was Glastonbury Festival here in the UK. It's like the biggest festival in the world, and I came to the UK with no ticket, and it was 2 weeks away, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm going. I'm going. There was just this thing in me that was like, I am doing this. I'm going to this festival. I don't know how it's going to happen. And I I like did the actions. I did the vision board, and I took those sorts of things because I love doing vision boards. It's like one of my favorite things ever. And like I did all the manifesting, like all the airy fairy type of stuff. But then I also took action where like I made sure that my life was set up so I could go to the festival, because at this point it's a week away and I don't have a ticket, but I'm holding off other things. I'm like, oh well, I could go to Scotland, I could go on this, I could find a job, but actually I'm not going to do any of that because that would happen over the time that the festival was on. So I was like, I'm holding out this space of my time for the festival. And it's like, well, what actions can I take to create this? Because I can't buy a ticket. There's no ticket. It's all sold out. And so it was like figuring out, how am I going to create this? And all I did was I talked to my friend and I told her on the phone, I'm going to Glastonbury. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going. And just talking to a friend is what created that reality, because then she got sick. She had a ticket, but she got sick. And so she gave me the ticket in, and she had like a whole job and everything. So I ended up working at Glastonbury Festival. And it was all just because I told a friend. And so it's like things like this, when you just have your mind set on something and you believe it, you act like a delusional, crazy person, and you just like fully believe it. And sometimes all it is telling someone that you never know what the step is that's going to take you there. But if you just keep believing it, you'll just so happen to make the step that accidentally that makes it happen a lot of the time. So I think,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset that I like to carry forward when a goal is so big or seemingly impossible. It's like, well, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen, and I'm just going to act as if it's going to happen, and
Mm.
and hopefully it will, and it always does. So yeah,
Yeah. Look, there's,
that's my
there's it's
experience.
such a cool story, but there's so much to that as well, because there's where some people come unstuck is they do all the wishing and the imagining and the thoughts of that go into this, type of life or lifestyle that they want to create, or whatever outcome they want to produce in their life. But then, they kind of do the thing in the secret where they sit back and think like, I can just sit down on the couch and eat potato chips, and checks are going to come in the mail, and it's just going to happen that way. And the reality is that it often doesn't. Most often doesn't. And
Yeah.
the missing piece of the puzzle is the affirmative action that is incongruent with the thing that you want to achieve, right? So the universe always rewards action. If it sees there being you a fat, lazy slob, and it's just going to give you more of the thing that you're asking for, which is more fat and more laziness and more slobbiness, right? Like, it's just going to give you all of those things because that's the energy that you're putting out. So if you live in worlds of, I'm giving as much as I wish to receive, then that's like a part of the mindset that goes towards, well, I'm thinking about the thing that I want. I'm feeling, remember at the outset of the conversation, that you have this memory, which is of a past situation or circumstance and events, and that memory carries with it emotion, and it's the emotion that sets the trigger, because the emotion carries all of the data, right? It carries all of the intuitive, collective, emotional response to things. That's why when we get triggered, we kind of go, this circumstance, pissed me off in some way, but it fired off this memory of when I was like 7, and my dad, slapped me because I back chatted him or something like that. So like, why the fuck am I getting a memory from 7 about this thing that pissed me off that my friend did or whatever it is? It's because that's how the unconscious mind stores its memory files and kind of goes, well, we know when we were pissed off the last time and we felt rejected, and this was the time. And so here we are, we've labeled it and we're bringing it out. It was when you were 7. It was like, 31 years ago. So like, it's like those sorts of things that come up. So then the challenge then becomes is, well, when those moments happen, and now I start to feel sorry for myself and I'm rejected. And what did I do when I was rejected? Well, my mum come along and said, I'm sorry your dad, treated you that way. Here's a bowl of ice cream and let's make, little Juliet feel better again. And then all of a sudden your association to numbing yourself, feeling great about a shitty situation is to eat food. And so when you're in that habitual play of nurturing yourself, then this becomes the challenge, because you're now in a situation where you're like, well, if I was to call in this highest version of myself, what would the highest version of myself do right now? And as adults, this is the tricky part. We have to become the parent that we never had. And so, when we talk to, childhood traumas and all that kind of stuff, it's like a reparenting scenario. So if I was in this situation again, what would I do? It'd be like, well, Adrian, don't eat fucking ice cream, because that's going to be making you feel shit afterwards. You're going to feel worse about yourself. What would the highest version of Adrian do right now? He might think about the situation and think about perhaps talking to his friend about how it made him pissed off. And then he might say to himself, well, whereabouts in my body do I feel pissed off? Or I feel it in my throat, and this is sort of all congested and tight. And so I'm just going to go into a bit of a meditation. I'm going to release all of this tension around my throat, and I'm going to express myself to my friend and like say to them, like, this is how you made me feel in this moment, and see if I can get some resolve in this moment right now in order to put the lid on this particular situation. Yeah. So it's like all of these things are in combination. It's not one thing in isolation. It's only some of the parts. Like all of it combined is where the overcoming obstacles and blockages and challenges is. And that self-talk and that calling in the highest version of yourself and that thinking and feeling and emoting into what it would be like to be, what it would feel like to be that person. That's the juice. That's the glue that holds everything together. And so when people like find it difficult, it's because they're either not doing most of the things or they're doing some of the things. So, when you're visualizing this ticket that's coming in, well, in the meantime, life's also happening. So there's things that are going to perhaps get in the way or go wrong, or you're not going to be feeling good, or you catch a cold, or you run down, or you're tired, or you drank too much one night, or you ate too much the one day, or whatever it may be. So there's things that are going to get in the way anyway. So what do you do in those moments? And this is where most people start to really feel like nothing's working. I'm visualizing, I've got the vision board, I've got everything written down, I'm doing the SMART goals, and I'm still not getting anywhere. It's because underneath, like, that's like the tip of the iceberg, and underneath the rest of it is like all of these trapped emotions and feelings and past memories and traumas that has been unresolved for many years, and they've failed to look at everything beneath the surface. So once you clear all that gunk and that shit out, all the rest of it starts to make sense, because now you're kind of like in flow and you're in alignment. And everyone's had the moments where they're like, I don't know what happened to me. I just like lost track of time and I didn't eat and I couldn't sleep and whatever it is. And I didn't give a fuck. I was like totally in that moment and everything worked out. Like all we do is string more of those moments together. And, most of the time it'll be conducive to a happy, harmonious, successful, fulfilled life.
My goodness me. That was a nice, big, juicy steak. That was.
My favorite.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I've never, I've heard bits and pieces of all of what you've just said at separate times, but I've never actually heard it strung together like that and put together in like one stream of thinking. And it makes perfect sense. So that feeling of being blocked can be unblocked through talking to your higher self and having a process in which to do that, whatever that looks like for you. I think, Juliet, you journal, don't you? You do that. You communicate with your higher self through your journaling. Is that right? Can you hear me?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking
That's funny. Yeah.
talking to my higher self. Yes.
Through
So
your
You journal.
journaling.
I see there's a lawnmower going on down there, and so it's like kind of muffling the audio a bit. And I heard what you said. I just didn't hear who you directed it to. Yes, my higher self. I so I do. I always connect with my higher self, and I always say highest self, because a lot of people say higher self, but when you connect with your to connect with your higher self, but your higher self can just be you tomorrow, and
Yeah,
because
sure.
you're learning constantly, it could be you in the next, I don't know, hour. So yeah, highest self. I always connect, and I always tune in and learn and ask questions. I feel like I think I wholeheartedly agree with you that it's probably like the best skill or the best practice that you can learn. It's like, I don't know, just we all have access to infinite wisdom that we all, hold in within ourselves. Like, we don't need to watch the news or ask another person, or we don't need external things for information a lot of the time. I'm not saying don't reach out for help or ask other people for questions, of course, but yeah, we have this innate knowing, and everything that we need to know is within us. And I always just journal and ask. That's my way of connecting in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, look, I think if you look to the most successful people or the most revered people on earth from the beginning of time, they kind of all had a process of thinking and deliberating and connecting to this sort of what we now in this new agey term call like source energy or your higher self or whatever it may be. That kind of savior complex that we talked about before. I mean, it speaks of it in the Bible. I mean, not that I've been across the Bible in many years, but I hear quotes from Jesus that are like talking to the highest version of yourself, right? And knowing within, like all of this is within. And so to me, if you're going to align that with any religious belief system or whatever it may be, it seems like God is within. It seems like Christ is within. It seems like your highest version of yourself is within. And so to call that would be to listen. And some people might go, listen to your heart. Well, that whatever that is for you or however you dial into it, I don't have a problem with it. For me, I just come to the realization that every time I called out to like find some answers, it was my own voice that came back. And so that was my realization in that time, that the highest version of myself is connected through this vessel. And all I need to do is kind of just get used to that voice. So like, it's one of those things, like I run a course, it's called the Higher Self Blueprint, right? And so it's a 6-week online course, and these are the things that I start from the ground up to help people build the foundation of getting to know themselves, often for the first time, and to understand how they think, feel, and act, and more importantly, why they think, feel, and act the way that they do. And so when I ask them to then create this newest version of themselves, I liken it to, if you've got an iPhone and it's an iPhone 11, and it keeps asking you to upgrade, but everyone keeps swiping it away, swiping the notification, and they're saying, I don't want any upgrades, I don't want any newest versions, and they wonder why it runs slow as fuck and it doesn't do the things that they want it to do anymore, and it's just really clunky and clumsy and all the rest of it. Well, you don't have the latest version of that phone. Like, it's saying download iPhone 24 and you'll have all these new fandangle things that come with it, right? It'll work faster. It's got, better processing, and everything works in lightning fast and to the best of its ability. But you keep swiping away saying, I don't want the latest version. And we often do that in life. And so when I teach people how to connect with that self, I just say the highest version of yourself. Like you're saying, I connect with the highest version. Like, what would the best version of yourself say right now? What would if you had the coach right in front of you, had to coach yourself, what would you be saying? And if you can point to anything, if I said anyone listening onto this, if they had a health goal, I'd be like, well, what's it going to take for you to be healthy? They would all say, I got to get rid of junk food. Stop smoking and drinking so much and going out and having late nights. I've got to eat healthy food. I've got to have, plan my meals in advance and drink lots of water. Like, they fucking know exactly what to do. And so, these are the highest versions of yourself, and knows all the answers. So then underneath all of that is, well, why aren't you listening to the highest version of yourself? And this is the unconscious programs that run 95% of the day. So then it's kind of like just a building process of like getting rid of all the layers. And like anything, darkness can't exist when there's light shine upon it, right? So like you just have to shine a light on these shadows and dark areas of yourself that you've been unwilling or unable or afraid to expose. And the funny thing is like, when it's dark outside and you can't see what's in front of you, and you're fearful that you might run into a spider web or something might touch your feet, or there could be something around the corner. But if the lights were on, you wouldn't give a shit, right? You just walk all around, you'd be free as a bird, and nothing would worry you. Why? Because there's light, right? And you can see what's in the horizon, you can see what's in front of you. But when there's darkness, you're clouded. Your judgment is impaired. You can't see anything. So therefore, you're fearful and you're frightened and you're apprehensive. And what do you do when you're fearful and frightened and apprehensive? It causes a state of inertia. Like you don't do anything. You're stifled. You're stunted in your growth, and you wonder why like things aren't working out for you. It's because you're living a life in fear instead of shining a light on all of the darkness that's been suffocating you for so long. And when you reach the other side, you just realize it just wasn't as bad as what you really thought. And all you need to do is kind of be comfortable being uncomfortable for a little while, and then it becomes kind of second nature to do things that are a little bit out there. And to the common person, they might say, geez, I don't know why Juliet's doing all of these things. She just upped and left and went overseas, and I don't know how she does all of those things. It's because you're just, used to being in uncomfortable scenarios, and it's nothing to you to do those sorts of things. And when you get into that moment, then you start to really not give a fuck what other people think about what you're doing with your life. Why? Because you're in tune with the things that you're doing in your life. You're in alignment. You're congruent with your value systems and your belief systems. It doesn't matter what other people think, because you realize in that moment, it's only you should be concerned about, who lives your life, and whoever wants to gravitate and be a part of all of that, so be it. Welcome aboard. But if you don't, good riddance. Like, I don't really care, because this is my life, and I'm the author of my own story. Like, every parable, every fable, every like enlightened being says the same thing. And so it's time for people to like kind of unblock themselves, unfuck themselves, like you're giving your power away to someone else or something, when it all exists within you right here and right now, and you can access it in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
High five to that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So what I got I got a lot from that, but one thing that I got was, you shouldn't always be asking yourself, what do I need to do to get to my dream self? Because we already all know that. It's more, the question should be, why am I not there already? Why am I not doing the things that, yeah, why am I doing the things that are preventing me from getting there is the real, where you're going to find the real answers. So
Yeah, look,
I got, so,
I think it's
wow.
probably both, Juliet. Like, I think it's probably both. And
Yeah.
again, when I'm teaching on this, I kind of uncover little things about how people operate. And when you go into childhood programmings and how they play out in adult behaviors, and when you go into attachment styles, and you go into, kinds of like techniques and strategies that help you access that part of the unconscious mind that stores the memory and stores the emotions, and you can recall those moments, and then you can start to replace those files with new improved versions of how that event should have played out, and what you should have done, and what they should have said, and how you should have been treated. Like, all of that starts to make sense. And then you kind of know that whenever there's a trigger or there's a moment where you're incongruent with the version of yourself that you want to be, you just kind of go, there it is again. And then initially it's kind of laborious, and it's kind of like, fuck, I've got so much work to do. But that's
Mm.
because we've had many decades of like running a program unconsciously, or many programs unconsciously. And we've got like, we're so great at hanging shit on ourselves. We're so great at looking at the worst parts of ourselves, and telling ourselves why we're the messes that we are, and all that kind of stuff. And we've had many other people who only did the best with what they could, and and the information they had, were telling us the same thing. We kind of learnt from mostly broken people. And kudos to those who had well put together families and parents, and people that guided them in their best light. Like, that would only be a fraction of the population. The rest of us, we've all got our little, scrapes and bumps, and scars, and things that we need to work through, and sort of smoothing out to be like the best version of ourselves. And that's no easy process, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Well, we've
Wow.
reached time.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I, yeah, I don't really know what to say other than thank you for coming on and dropping the million bombs on us all to go and figure out what to do with that now.
Pleasure. It's my pleasure. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to have me on. It's great to do this, and share some of the things that, hopefully someone will take a nugget or two away. And I think, conversations like this, should be had more often. I think people are always searching and always looking, and sometimes they're maybe afraid to reach out for help, because maybe it's a sign of weakness, or whatever. But for whatever reason that anyone might be tuning in at this moment is the right time and the right situation, there's always someone else out there that's gone through the stuff. And I just happen to be, a person that I think has gone through like 11 out of 10 lessons in life. And I love the fact that I can teach what I know, and come from lived experience. And I'm always happy to share a personal side of that for me, because this is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy for me, because I have gone and going through things in life that test you, and test your resolve, it tests your character, it tests your will or willingness to overcome obstacles, blockages, as the theme of this podcast has been. And I think the truly successful people in life are those people who have that kind of tenacity to always see a glass half full, and keep persisting and keep fighting to the end. Like, that's like the hero's journey, really. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys,
So
and
true.
I thank you for the opportunity.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. Wow, this is a lot for me to digest, and I will be feasting on this information that you've given us for weeks now. And I really appreciate your honesty and your generosity with your knowledge. So until next time, I'm hoping you'll come on again.
For sure, I'd love to.
Awesome.
Yes. And thank you everybody for watching this episode, and we'll see you next week. Alrighty.
Ah.
Now I have to figure out how to, there we go.